She woke up that morning with a heavy feeling in her chest. The baby had cried most of the night and she barely had a moment to sleep. Her head was pounding, and she felt the weight of the world on her shoulders. Work was waiting, emails were piling up, and her little one needed attention too. She had never felt so torn in her life. Every morning she tried to balance being a mom and an employee, but days like this made it seem impossible. She fed her baby and changed the diaper, all while checking her phone for messages from her office. Her fingers moved almost automatically, scrolling through emails, responding to urgent ones first. Today, though, the main worry was not at work. Her baby had been ill for the past few days, and the pediatrician had finally given her a prescription that morning. She held the small paper in her hand, staring at it as if it were a lifeline. She needed to get the medicine right away, but the thought of leaving work was stressful. She dressed quickly, trying to get herself and the baby ready. Her mind raced with thoughts about deadlines, meetings, and the expectation of her boss. She felt a tight knot in her stomach. Could she leave her desk for a moment? Would sending someone else for the medicine work? She felt trapped between her responsibilities and her love for her child. As she prepared to send the prescription to the pharmacy, her phone rang. It was her boss, a person she respected deeply but feared sometimes because of their reputation for high expectations. She answered quickly, trying to sound calm and collected despite her inner panic. The conversation was brief, mostly about updates at work, and she felt her nerves ease slightly after talking to them. She hung up and turned her attention back to the prescription. Her fingers trembled slightly as she opened her email, ready to send the prescription to the pharmacy. She typed a quick note and attached the scanned prescription. But in her exhaustion, she accidentally selected her boss's email instead of the pharmacy's. She hit send, then froze, staring at the screen in disbelief. How could she make such a mistake? Her heart started racing and she felt her face heat up. The paper she was holding suddenly felt heavier than ever. She had sent something so personal to her boss, and now she could only imagine the awkwardness that would follow. Her mind spun with panic. What would the boss think? Would this affect her professional image? She had always been careful about keeping her personal life separate from work. But now it was all out there in one accidental click. She wanted to call immediately, but her fingers hovered over the phone, unsure if making it worse would help. She felt a wave of embarrassment and fear, wishing she could turn back time. She tried to take deep breaths to calm herself, but every second that passed seemed to stretch longer. The baby started to fuss, sensing her tension, and she picked the child up, rocking gently. She whispered soft words, hoping the baby would feel safe despite the stress in the room. Her eyes watered, not just from fatigue, but from the overwhelming situation she had put herself in. She felt alone, even though she knew the baby relied entirely on her. As she watched the baby calm down for a moment, she thought about the challenges she faced as a working parent. She remembered late nights spent on reports while the baby cried beside her. She recalled the mornings when she had to choose between feeding the child or answering urgent work emails. Life had become a constant juggling act, and mistakes like this felt like proof of her inability to manage it all. Yet she also remembered the reasons she kept going, the smiles, the tiny hands gripping hers, and the feeling of love that made every sleepless night worth it. Her mind returned to the email she had sent by mistake. She pictured her boss opening it, seeing the prescription meant for her baby. She imagined their reaction, confusion, surprise, maybe even irritation. The thought made her stomach churn. She felt vulnerable, exposed, and unsure how to recover from this slip. Every scenario she imagined seemed worse than the last. She wanted to hide, to disappear, to erase the moment entirely. But she knew that wasn't possible. Time seemed to crawl as she waited for a response. She checked her phone repeatedly, hoping that maybe the boss hadn't seen the email yet. Each notification made her jump, her heart racing. She tried to focus on work, but her mind kept drifting back to the prescription and the tiny human depending on her. She felt a mix of guilt and fear that she could not quite explain. How could a simple mistake feel like a potential disaster? In between panic and attempts to focus, she remembered to breathe and tell herself that mistakes happen. She thought about the baby's needs, realizing that the most important thing was getting the medication. Everything else, including the professional embarrassment, could be dealt with later. She held the baby close, feeling the soft weight in her arms, and let a sigh escape her lips. The situation was stressful, but there was still hope. She reminded herself that some people could surprise you with kindness. Minutes felt like hours as she waited. Every ring of her phone made her jump, but none of them were from her boss. She debated whether to send a follow-up email apologizing immediately, but she hesitated. What if it made the situation worse? What if it seemed panicked or desperate? She felt trapped in indecision, caught between wanting to fix the mistake and fearing the reaction it might provoke. Her thoughts drifted to her colleagues. She wondered if anyone had ever experienced something similar. Would they understand? Could she confide in someone? She realized that she had been so focused on doing everything herself that she had rarely asked for help. Now, facing the consequences of a simple mistake, she felt the weight of isolation, wishing there was someone to talk to without judgment. The baby stirred again, sensing the tension. She rocked the child gently, humming softly, trying to calm both the baby and herself. Her mind ran through all possible outcomes. Maybe the boss would ignore the email. Maybe they would be understanding. Maybe they would react in a way she couldn't even imagine. Each scenario played in her head, keeping her on edge. She wished for a sign, any reassurance that things would be okay. As the minutes passed, she realized that all she could do was wait. She held the baby close, feeling the soft breath and tiny heartbeat. She allowed herself a small moment of reflection, thinking about how unpredictable life could be. A small mistake had thrown her into chaos, but it also reminded her of the fragility and beauty of the moments she often took for granted. Holding her child, she felt a surge of determination to handle whatever came next, even if she didn't know how. Her thoughts drifted to gratitude for the baby's presence. Despite the exhaustion, the fear, and the panic, she felt love stronger than any worry. She knew that whatever the outcome of the accidental email, the bond with her child was unshakable. She whispered quietly, promising to do everything she could to care for the baby no matter how challenging life became. She let herself hope that the situation might unfold in an unexpected, positive way. And so she waited, holding the baby tightly, breathing through the anxiety, and preparing herself for whatever response would come next. Every second stretched long, but she reminded herself that sometimes life's surprises come from the most unexpected places. She closed her eyes for a brief moment, letting a tiny wave of calm wash over her, even as her heart remained on edge, waiting for the moment that would change everything. Her phone buzzed unexpectedly, and she jumped, her heart skipping a beat. She hesitated for a moment before looking at the screen. The name of her boss appeared in the notification, and her stomach tightened. She had been imagining all sorts of reactions in her head, from confusion to disappointment, and she wasn't ready to face any of them. Taking a deep breath, she tapped the screen and opened the message. The text was simple but completely unexpected. It read, "Doctor's coming." She blinked, staring at the words, trying to make sense of them. Doctor's coming? What did that mean? Her mind raced as she tried to connect the dots. Had her boss misunderstood the email? Was this some kind of joke? She could feel the blood rushing to her face, a mix of embarrassment and confusion. She clutched her baby a little tighter, rocking gently as her mind tried to process what she had just read. She read the message again, hoping that maybe her tired brain was misinterpreting it. No, it was the same. The words were clear, simple, and completely unanticipated. She didn't understand how her boss had responded in this way. Usually people reacted with caution or formality, not with this kind of direct action. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, unsure if she should reply or stay silent and wait. Panic and curiosity mixed into one heavy feeling. She considered calling immediately to explain the mistake, but she paused. What if calling made things worse? What if she sounded frantic or unprofessional? She knew she had to remain composed, but it was difficult. Her baby, sensing her tension, started to fuss again. She shifted the child in her arms, trying to soothe them while her mind continued to spin. The room felt smaller, the walls closer, as she struggled to find a way to react without making a mess of the situation. Her thoughts went back to the email. She had meant to send it to the pharmacy, and now, her personal life was directly in her boss's hands. Normally, she had been so careful to separate work and family, but one small slip had changed that entirely. She felt vulnerable and exposed, emotions she hadn't anticipated feeling in a professional setting. She wished she could disappear for a moment, just to gather herself before facing the unexpected consequence of her action. She looked down at the baby, who was now softly rubbing against her shoulder, eyes half closed. Despite the stress and confusion, she felt a warmth and sense of responsibility that outweighed her fear. This tiny human depended entirely on her, and she had to keep calm for both of them. She tried to breathe slowly, focusing on the small moments of peace in the midst of her anxious thoughts. The baby's soft breathing, the quiet ticking of the clock, and the faint morning light filtering into the room helped her steady herself. She decided to give it a few minutes before responding. Maybe waiting would give her a clearer mind. As she held the baby, she began to think about her boss. Over the years, she had learned that this person was known for being both strict and fair. They expected a lot from their team, but also had a reputation for surprising kindness. Could this message be a sign of understanding, or was it a test of composure? She didn't know, but the possibility gave her a tiny glimmer of hope. Minutes felt like hours as she waited for the next message or any indication of what would happen. Every notification from her phone made her heart race, even if it wasn't from her boss. She tried to focus on work, opening her laptop and scanning through emails, but concentration eluded her. Her thoughts kept returning to the text. "Doctor's coming." She tried to imagine why her boss would respond in this way, but no scenario seemed to fit completely. She felt both anxious and curious, caught between fear and anticipation. She thought about calling the pharmacy directly, explaining the situation, but the thought of rushing out and leaving work unfinished added another layer of stress. She didn't want to appear irresponsible at the office, and yet her primary concern was the baby. She felt torn in two directions, the pull of professional duty and parental responsibility competing fiercely in her mind. She knew she had to navigate this carefully, but the uncertainty made her feel trapped. Her eyes wandered around the office, the quiet space making her feel more alone. She wished for a friend or colleague to confide in, someone who could provide reassurance or guidance. But she also knew that personal matters like this were rarely shared at work. She felt a mix of isolation and vulnerability, realizing how much she relied on herself in moments like these. She clutched her baby, feeling the tiny heartbeat and the warmth of soft skin, and tried to find comfort in the small, grounding presence. Finally, her phone buzzed again. This time it was a brief message. "Doctor will be there in 10 minutes. Her heart skipped a beat. The words confirmed what she had only begun to suspect. Someone was coming to help. She felt a wave of relief mixed with disbelief. This wasn't just a kind gesture. It was immediate action. She could hardly believe it. Someone, her boss, was taking her personal crisis seriously and acting quickly to support her and her baby. The feeling was overwhelming, a mix of gratitude, relief, and astonishment. She started pacing lightly, trying to prepare for the arrival of the doctor. She tidied up the small area where she was holding the baby, making sure everything was ready. She kept glancing at the door, her mind racing with thoughts about what would happen next. Would the doctor know exactly what to do? Would the baby respond well? She felt a surge of nervous energy, her body buzzing with anticipation and stress. The baby sensed her agitation and wriggled slightly, making her adjust her hold. She whispered soothing words, trying to remain calm despite the flood of emotions. She reminded herself that the baby picked up on every feeling, and she wanted to provide reassurance through her own calm demeanor. She focused on breathing deeply, counting silently, trying to steady her nerves. Every moment felt intense, but she knew she had to remain composed for both herself and the baby. While waiting, she reflected on her life over the past few days. The sleepless nights, the frantic mornings, the constant balancing act of work and parenting, it all came rushing back. She realized that this mistake, as alarming as it felt, was just a small part of a much larger challenge. She had faced difficulties before, moments when she felt overwhelmed and unsure, but somehow she had always found a way forward. This situation was another test of resilience, another moment where she had to trust that things could work out. Her phone buzzed again and she jumped slightly, glancing at the screen. A message confirmed that the doctor was on their way and would arrive shortly. She felt a small sense of reassurance, knowing that help was coming. The reality of the situation began to sink in. Her boss had not just reacted with words, but had taken tangible steps to assist her. The thought brought tears to her eyes, a mix of relief and gratitude. She felt deeply touched by the unexpected kindness and consideration. As she held the baby, she thought about how rare it was to encounter such immediate empathy in a professional environment. Most people would have simply sent a polite response or ignored the personal nature of the email altogether. But here someone had gone beyond expectation, taking swift action to ensure her baby's well-being. The realization left her feeling both humbled and inspired. She felt a renewed sense of trust in people, a belief that compassion and humanity could still be found in unexpected places. She glanced around the office, imagining what colleagues might think if they knew what was happening. Some would be surprised, others impressed, and some might even find it unbelievable. She felt a quiet pride in having a boss who acted with such empathy, someone who didn't just talk about support, but demonstrated it in a meaningful way. She held the baby closer, feeling a sense of connection not only to her child but to the world of people capable of kindness. The minutes passed slowly, each one stretching longer than the last. She found herself alternating between hope and worry, excitement and nervousness. The anticipation was intense, but it was also a reminder that life could bring unexpected surprises. She reminded herself to stay present, focusing on the baby, the small breaths, and the comforting warmth. She knew that the next moments could change everything, that the arrival of the doctor could bring resolution and relief. Finally, a knock at the door startled her. She looked up and a friendly face appeared, holding a small medical bag. The doctor had arrived. Her heart raced as she greeted them, explaining the situation in a steady voice. The baby, sensing the new presence, became alert and curious. She felt a mix of nervousness and relief, knowing that help was finally here. The tension that had been building for hours began to ease slightly as she watched the doctor prepare to assist. She followed instructions carefully, holding the baby steady and observing every step. The doctor was professional, kind, and reassuring, explaining each action and making her feel at ease. She marveled at the efficiency and care, feeling grateful that this support had come so quickly and smoothly. The atmosphere in the office shifted from tension to calm, the presence of the doctor bringing a sense of relief and reassurance she hadn't realized she needed. As the doctor treated the baby, she reflected on the entire morning. The panic, the accidental email, the unexpected message from her boss, and now this moment of care, it all felt surreal. She realized that life often presented challenges in ways that seemed impossible at first, but solutions and support could come from the most unexpected places. She felt a deep sense of gratitude, not just for the immediate help, but for the reminder that compassion existed even in professional settings. Her phone buzzed again. It was a message from her boss, simple and direct. "Hope everything is okay. Let me know if you need anything else." She felt tears well up again, touched by the continued thoughtfulness. She typed a quick reply, thanking them and assuring them that the situation was now under control. The relief was palpable, a weight lifting off her shoulders. She realized that the fear and anxiety of the past hours had transformed into something more. The doctor arrived quickly, and she felt her chest loosen slightly. The small medical bag in their hand was a tangible promise that help had come. She guided the baby into a comfortable position and explained the situation to the doctor calmly, though her mind was still spinning from the morning's stress. The baby, sensing the change in energy, quieted down for a moment, focusing on the new presence. She felt a tiny glimmer of hope in the middle of the chaos. The doctor worked efficiently, checking the prescription, preparing the necessary medications, and explaining each step in a calm, clear voice. She watched carefully, holding the baby steady and responding to instructions. Every movement the doctor made seemed reassuring, a quiet reminder that things could be resolved with patience and care. Her hands were steady now, guided by necessity and love, as she observed each action with a mix of fascination and relief. As the doctor administered the treatment, she noticed the baby's reaction. The tiny sighs of relief, the soft coos, the gradual relaxation in posture, it all indicated that her child was beginning to feel better. She smiled softly, feeling a surge of warmth and gratitude. The fear that had consumed her only minutes before seemed to be fading, replaced with a sense of hope. She realized that this moment was not just about medicine. It was about care, attention, and the presence of someone willing to act without hesitation. She thought about her boss as she watched the scene unfold. The decision to send a doctor directly to her office was beyond anything she had expected. It was more than kindness. It was understanding, compassion, and immediate action. She felt a deep respect building in her heart, a realization that leadership could exist in many forms, including empathy and proactive support. The panic of the email mistake had transformed into a profound lesson in humanity. The doctor spoke, gently, explaining how the medication should be administered and answering her questions with patience. She absorbed every word, grateful for the clarity and guidance. She realized how fortunate she was to have someone so skilled and attentive present. Her earlier fear of the mistake seemed distant now, overshadowed by the tangible support in front of her. The baby's health was being prioritized, and that was all that mattered in that moment. She reflected on the morning's chaos, the sleepless night, the frantic preparations, and the accidental email. Each moment had been intense, but the resolution made her realize that life often brought unexpected challenges and even more unexpected solutions. She had felt alone in her struggle, but now she could see that support could appear in ways she had never imagined. It was a reminder that no one truly faced their battles entirely alone, even when it felt that way. As the doctor continued, she felt her mind clearing. The panic that had dominated her thoughts was replaced with focus and presence. She realized that for so long she had been reacting to the pressure of responsibilities rather than approaching them calmly. This moment was teaching her to breathe, to observe, and to trust in the help available. Holding her baby, she felt a connection not only to her child but to the small community of people willing to step in when needed. She noticed subtle details, the way the doctor's hands moved carefully, the gentle tone used when speaking to the baby, and the reassuring nods to her own actions. Each gesture was a form of communication, an unspoken promise that they were there to help. She felt a wave of gratitude, realizing that actions often spoke louder than words. Her boss's message had set this chain of events in motion, but the real comfort came from witnessing it unfold directly. The baby's eyes fluttered open, taking in the unfamiliar surroundings and the kind face of the doctor. She felt a surge of relief as the child responded positively, making small noises that indicated comfort. She whispered softly, soothing words meant to calm both herself and the baby. The room was filled with quiet, focused energy, a stark contrast to the panic that had gripped her just moments ago. She began to understand the power of calm presence in moments of crisis. She asked the doctor questions about follow-up care and any potential side effects, determined to fully understand what was happening. The doctor answered patiently, explaining each detail and giving advice for continued care. She listened intently, taking notes mentally, feeling empowered by the knowledge. Her sense of agency returned as she realized she could actively contribute to her baby's recovery. The initial mistake of sending the email seemed less significant now, overshadowed by the immediate positive impact of swift action. During the treatment, she reflected on the nature of human kindness. She realized that sometimes people could surprise you with generosity and empathy, even in professional settings where such gestures were rare. Her boss had acted quickly, understanding the urgency without judgment. It was a demonstration of trust and humanity that she had not anticipated. She felt a profound sense of appreciation, recognizing that the world still held people willing to act selflessly. The doctor finished the treatment, giving her clear instructions for administering the medicine at home. She thanked the doctor warmly, feeling an emotional release as the tension of the morning began to fade. The baby, now calm and content, snuggled into her arms. She felt a deep connection, a mixture of relief, love, and gratitude. The crisis had passed, but the lesson remained. Help could come in unexpected forms, and vulnerability could invite support. She sent a quick message to her boss, thanking them for the immediate action and explaining that the baby was now being cared for. She felt a sense of pride in being able to communicate clearly and respectfully, even after such an unusual morning. The response from her boss was brief but warm, acknowledging the message and expressing hope for the baby's continued health. She smiled, feeling a sense of connection and reassurance. The professional relationship had shifted subtly, strengthened by the shared experience of care and empathy. As she settled with the baby, she thought about the broader implications of the morning's events. The panic and stress had been intense, but they had revealed the presence of support and compassion in places she hadn't expected. She reflected on how often people judged mistakes harshly, yet here was an example of understanding and proactive care. She felt inspired to carry this lesson forward, to extend empathy to others whenever possible, and to recognize the impact of small acts of kindness. The baby started to drift into a nap, exhausted from the morning's events. She held the child close, feeling the steady rhythm of breathing and the warmth of soft skin. She felt a quiet sense of accomplishment, having navigated the crisis with presence and care. The fear and anxiety that had dominated her earlier were now replaced with reflection and understanding. She realized that moments of vulnerability could lead to profound experiences of human connection. She allowed herself a brief moment of rest, closing her eyes and breathing deeply. The tension in her body eased, replaced with a calm awareness of the present. She thought about the series of events, the accidental email, the unexpected message from her boss, the arrival of the doctor, and the baby's care. Each step had built on the previous one, transforming a moment of panic into an experience of trust and support. She felt grateful, not only for the immediate help, but for the reminder that kindness could appear in unexpected ways. Her thoughts wandered to the future. She knew that life would continue to bring challenges, but she felt strengthened by the knowledge that support existed, sometimes in surprising forms. She resolved to approach future difficulties with a combination of calm, presence, and trust, recognizing that panic rarely solved anything, but empathy and action often did. The morning had taught her a lesson she would carry forward, a reminder of the interconnectedness of people and the power of compassionate leadership. She looked at the baby, now sleeping peacefully, and felt a sense of serenity. The crisis had been real, intense, and stressful, but it had also revealed the capacity for human kindness and understanding. She realized that mistakes, while frightening, could lead to unexpected positive outcomes when met with empathy. She felt a renewed sense of hope, not only for herself and her child but for the broader world, recognizing that small acts of care could create ripples of comfort and connection. As she continued to hold the baby, she thought about her own growth through this experience. She had faced fear, uncertainty, and vulnerability, yet she had navigated them with presence and care. The support she received had reinforced the importance of community, trust, and proactive kindness. She felt a deep appreciation for the doctor's skill and the boss's quick action, understanding that both had contributed to a resolution that went beyond the immediate medical need. She began to plan the rest of her day, balancing work responsibilities with the continued care of her baby. The morning had been intense, but it had also provided a profound reminder of resilience and support. She felt empowered to move forward, knowing that even in moments of mistake and panic, solutions could appear, guided by the empathy and action of others. The experience left her with a renewed sense of confidence and trust, both in herself and in the world around her. Holding the baby, she reflected one last time on the lessons of the morning. Mistakes were not the end. They were opportunities for connection, learning, and unexpected care. She realized that the panic she had felt was natural, but it had been transformed by the presence of people willing to act with kindness. She felt gratitude, relief, and love, emotions that filled the room and created a sense of peace she hadn't expected at the start of the day. The morning's events had been a journey from fear to understanding, a journey she would never forget. The office was quiet once the doctor had left, leaving her alone with her baby. She held the child close, feeling the warmth of small limbs and the steady rhythm of breathing. A sense of calm washed over her, mingling with the lingering astonishment from the morning's events. The panic of sending the prescription to the wrong person had transformed into a profound sense of relief and gratitude. She realized how extraordinary the experience had been and how much it had revealed about human kindness. She looked around the office, her mind replaying the chain of events. The accidental email had felt like a disaster, a mistake that could have had consequences far beyond her control. Yet in a few short minutes, her world had shifted completely. Her boss had responded in a way she had never expected, taking immediate action to ensure her baby's safety. The doctor's arrival and the careful treatment of her child had solidified her sense of wonder and thankfulness. She understood now that sometimes mistakes were opportunities for connection and understanding rather than judgment. As she held the baby, she thought about the delicate balance of her life. Work and parenting often felt like two opposing forces, pulling her in different directions. She had always tried to manage both, but moments like this reminded her of the fragility of that balance. She realized how essential support was, not just for her, but for anyone juggling multiple responsibilities. The actions of her boss had provided a tangible example of how understanding and empathy could make all the difference in a challenging situation. The baby, sensing the calm energy, settled more comfortably in her arms. She whispered soft words, gently rocking the child as her mind reflected on the morning. The panic, the stress, the fear, it all seemed like a distant memory compared to the present moment of connection and care. She felt grateful not only for the help, but for the realization that she did not have to face everything alone. Even in professional settings, human kindness could appear in the most unexpected ways. Her thoughts drifted to her colleagues. She wondered how they would react if they knew what had happened. Some might be skeptical, others impressed, and a few might even be inspired. She thought about how people often judged mistakes harshly, without understanding the context or the humanity behind them. Today had been a vivid reminder that support, action, and empathy could transform a moment of panic into an experience of trust and connection. She felt a renewed sense of admiration for her workplace and the people in it. She carefully set up the baby's space, making sure everything was comfortable and accessible. While doing so, she reflected on the role of her boss in this scenario. Leadership was often measured by results and decisions, but this morning had shown her that true leadership could also be measured by empathy, responsiveness, and genuine care for the people they led. Her boss had demonstrated that understanding human needs could be just as important as professional expectations. She felt inspired by this example, realizing how much impact compassion could have. As she settled back at her desk with the baby in her lap, she thought about the doctor's instructions and the next steps for caring for her child. She felt a quiet confidence building, knowing that she had guidance and support. She reviewed the prescription, making notes of the timing and dosage, feeling reassured that the baby would receive proper care. The sense of empowerment she felt was a stark contrast to the panic that had consumed her earlier. She had navigated a crisis and emerged with clarity and understanding. Her phone buzzed with messages and she glanced at them. Some were routine work updates, while others were personal check-ins from friends who knew about her baby's condition. She felt grateful for the network of people who cared, each message a reminder that she was not alone in her struggles. The support she had received today, both professional and personal, reinforced the idea that kindness and empathy were powerful forces in navigating life's challenges. She noticed the small gestures in the office that she had previously taken for granted, the quiet presence of colleagues, the willingness to share resources, the understanding when someone needed time for personal matters. Today's events had amplified her awareness of these subtle acts of care. She realized that human connection was often shown not just in grand gestures, but in small, thoughtful actions that made life more manageable and meaningful. Her boss's response had been extraordinary, but it was built on a foundation of understanding that she had observed over time. She held the baby closer, reflecting on the lessons she had learned. Mistakes were inevitable, but they could be met with compassion rather than judgment. Vulnerability could invite support, and empathy could transform fear into reassurance. She felt a renewed commitment to carry these lessons forward, not only in her professional life but in her interactions with others. The morning had been a vivid example of how human connection could change the outcome of a stressful situation. As she prepared to resume work, she felt a sense of calm focus. The baby, now settled and content, provided a grounding presence. She reviewed her tasks for the day, prioritizing what needed immediate attention while remaining mindful of the baby's needs. The morning had taught her the importance of patience, observation, and the ability to remain present in moments of stress. She felt empowered to approach the day with a balanced mindset, knowing that support was available when needed. She reflected on the idea of trust in herself, in her colleagues, and in those around her. The accidental email had initially felt like a breach of privacy and professionalism, but it had become a catalyst for a demonstration of trust and care. She realized that trust was a reciprocal relationship, strengthened by action and understanding. Her boss's response had reinforced her belief in the value of compassionate leadership and the importance of acting with integrity and empathy. Throughout the day, she found moments of reflection, observing how the baby responded to each small gesture of comfort and attention. She noticed the subtle cues, the tiny movements, the soft expressions that indicated well-being and trust. She felt a deep connection, recognizing the importance of attentiveness and presence in caregiving. The morning's events had emphasized that care was not just about action, but also about awareness, understanding, and responsiveness to needs. She thought about the broader implications of her experience. The accidental email, while initially terrifying, had opened a path to deeper understanding and connection. It had revealed the capacity for empathy in others and highlighted the importance of taking swift, thoughtful action in moments of urgency. She felt inspired to extend similar care to others in her life, recognizing that small gestures could have profound impacts. The morning had been a lesson in humanity, leadership, and the power of compassionate action. As the afternoon progressed, she managed to balance work responsibilities while keeping the baby close and content. Each task completed felt like a small victory, a demonstration of her ability to navigate complex demands with presence and care. She noticed a sense of calm efficiency in her approach, a quiet confidence that had emerged from the morning's challenges. She felt proud of her resilience and her capacity to adapt. Knowing that she had faced a moment of intense stress and emerged with clarity and understanding, she reflected once more on her boss's role in the events. The proactive response had not only provided immediate help, but had also reinforced her belief in the importance of empathy and action. She realized that leadership and support were intertwined, and that caring for others could take many forms. The morning had been a vivid demonstration of how compassion, trust, and quick action could transform a challenging situation into an experience of connection and reassurance. The baby began to show signs of tiredness again, and she prepared a comfortable space for a nap. She watched the child settle, feeling a profound sense of peace. The events of the morning had transformed her perspective on mistakes, support, and the unexpected ways that help could appear. She felt a deep appreciation for the people who had stepped in, recognizing that acts of kindness could ripple outward, creating lasting impact. As she observed the sleeping baby, she reflected on her own growth through the experience. She had faced fear, uncertainty, and vulnerability, yet she had navigated them with composure and presence. The support she had received had reinforced the value of empathy and proactive care, leaving her with a renewed sense of trust in the people around her. She felt inspired to carry these lessons forward, both in her personal life and in her interactions with others. She considered the future with a sense of hope and preparedness. Challenges would inevitably arise, but she now felt equipped to face them with a combination of calm, attentiveness, and trust in those willing to help. The morning had been a journey from panic to relief, from vulnerability to connection, and from fear to understanding. She held the baby gently, feeling the rhythm of life and the quiet strength of resilience. Grateful for the lessons learned and the support received, the office seemed brighter and calmer now, a reflection of her own inner state. She continued to work, mindful of the balance between professional duties and caregiving responsibilities. The morning had provided an unforgettable example of how empathy and quick action could transform a situation, and she carried that lesson with her in each decision, each interaction, and each moment of care. The experience had left an indelible mark on her, a reminder of the power of human connection and the importance of compassionate leadership. She closed her eyes for a brief moment, taking a deep breath and feeling the baby's steady presence. The sense of calm, gratitude, and understanding that had emerged over the course of the morning remained with her. She knew that life would continue to present challenges, but she also knew that she had witnessed and experienced the impact of care, empathy, and action. The morning had been a testament to the extraordinary ways that human kindness could appear. The office had quieted down completely by the late afternoon. She held the baby gently, feeling the steady rhythm of breathing and the warmth of soft skin. The panic and stress of the morning seemed almost like a distant memory. What had begun as a mistake, a hurried, accidental email, had turned into a series of extraordinary events that she would never forget. She felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude, not only for the help she had received, but for the way it had changed her perspective on support, trust, and human kindness. She reflected on the morning, the moment she realized the prescription had been sent to her boss by mistake. Her heart had raced, her mind had spun with worry, and the fear of embarrassment had felt unbearable. She had imagined every possible negative outcome from judgment to criticism, yet the response she received was completely unexpected. Her boss had acted quickly, arranging for a doctor to come directly to the office, showing an extraordinary level of understanding and care. She realized that mistakes, while frightening, could sometimes lead to the most meaningful moments. As she held the baby, she thought about the journey from panic to relief, from vulnerability to reassurance. The doctor's arrival had been professional, calm, and efficient, providing care and guidance that she could trust completely. She had watched closely, learning and absorbing every instruction. The baby had responded well, and the tension that had gripped her for hours had slowly melted away. She marveled at how quickly the situation had transformed, and how the kindness of one person could ripple outward, touching lives in unexpected ways. She considered the lessons she had learned that day. One of the most important was the realization that asking for help was not a weakness. Her initial instinct had been to panic and to try to solve everything on her own. Yet when she allowed herself to be vulnerable, support arrived in a powerful and immediate way. She reflected on how often people tried to manage challenges alone, when a willingness to reach out could make all the difference. The morning had shown her that empathy and action were far more effective than isolation and worry. Her thoughts turned to her boss once again. The proactive response had been beyond anything she had expected. It was a demonstration not just of professional leadership but of genuine human care. She realized that leadership could take many forms, and that compassion was one of the most impactful. The way her boss had acted had provided both immediate relief and a long-lasting example of how kindness could be integrated into professional life. She felt inspired, not just grateful, and knew she would carry this lesson forward. The baby stirred slightly, and she adjusted the child in her arms. The soft coos and tiny movements were a reminder of the small, fragile presence that had been at the center of her morning's worry. She whispered quietly, soothing words that carried both comfort and love. She felt the weight of responsibility but also the depth of connection. The experience had reminded her of the importance of being present, of observing subtle cues, and of responding with patience and care. As she rocked the baby gently, she reflected on her colleagues and the environment around her. She realized how small acts of understanding and flexibility could transform the workplace. The morning had been an extraordinary example, but it highlighted a truth that applied every day. When people acted with empathy and responsiveness, the effects could be profound. She felt a sense of gratitude not just for the immediate help, but for the broader realization that compassion was a choice that could be made repeatedly, shaping experiences and relationships. She began to plan the next steps for the baby's care. She reviewed the prescription, checking the timing and dosage, and made mental notes of follow-up requirements. The doctor's instructions were clear and easy to follow, and she felt confident that she could manage the baby's needs effectively. The sense of control she gained from this preparation was calming, reinforcing the idea that even after mistakes, it was possible to regain balance and manage challenges successfully. Her phone buzzed, and she glanced at the message. It was a simple follow-up from her boss, checking in to see if everything was okay. She smiled softly, touched by the continued concern. She replied, expressing her gratitude and reassuring them that her child was now being cared for. The interaction felt meaningful, a small but significant acknowledgement of the way empathy and support had shaped the morning. She realized that relationships, whether professional or personal, could be strengthened through acts of genuine care and responsiveness. As the day progressed, she found moments of reflection and calm. The baby rested peacefully, and she was able to focus on her work tasks with a renewed sense of clarity. The contrast between the morning's chaos and the afternoon's calm was striking. She felt a quiet confidence that came from knowing she had navigated an unexpected crisis successfully. The lessons of presence, patience, and trust had been reinforced, and she carried them with her in each decision she made. She thought about the ripple effects of kindness. The doctor's quick arrival, the boss's proactive decision, and even the supportive messages from friends and colleagues had all contributed to a sense of relief and reassurance. She realized that each act of care, no matter how small, could create a chain reaction of positivity. This understanding inspired her to consider how she could extend similar kindness to others, recognizing the potential impact of simple, thoughtful actions. As she held the baby, She reflected on her own growth through the experience. She had faced intense stress, fear, and vulnerability, yet she had managed to navigate them with composure and attentiveness. The support she received had highlighted the importance of human connection and the power of empathy. She felt a renewed sense of trust, not only in others but in her own ability to respond effectively to challenging situations. The morning had been a journey, and she had emerged stronger and wiser. She allowed herself a moment of gratitude, closing her eyes briefly and breathing deeply. The calm of the afternoon, the steady presence of the baby, and the lingering sense of care from those who had helped created a quiet, profound sense of peace. She reflected on the extraordinary kindness that had transformed a moment of potential embarrassment into an experience of reassurance and support. The lesson was clear. Human empathy, when acted upon, could turn mistakes into opportunities for connection. She looked around her workspace, noticing the small details she had taken for granted: the quiet hum of the office, the gentle lighting, and the sense of routine returning. These ordinary elements now felt comforting, a reminder that even in the midst of extraordinary events, life moved forward. She felt a renewed appreciation for stability and the small comforts that accompanied her daily responsibilities. Holding the baby, she recognized that life's challenges could be met with presence, patience, and trust. She thought about how she would share this experience with friends and family. The story was remarkable not just for the mistake itself, but for the way it had been transformed into an example of empathy and care. She felt compelled to recount the events, to highlight the lessons of kindness, trust, and proactive support. The morning had shown her that even in moments of stress and uncertainty, people could act in ways that were profoundly human and deeply impactful. As the baby began to stir again, she prepared for a feeding, feeling calm and collected. The routine of caregiving was grounding, a gentle reminder of the daily responsibilities that defined her life. She felt confident in her ability to manage these tasks, drawing strength from the knowledge that help was available when needed and that her own attentiveness could make a significant difference. The morning's events had reinforced her sense of capability and resilience. Her mind drifted to the broader lessons of the day. Mistakes were not disasters. They were opportunities for connection, learning, and growth. Vulnerability could invite support, and empathy could transform fear into reassurance. She realized that every challenge carried the potential for unexpected kindness and that human relationships, built on understanding and action, could have profound effects. She felt inspired to carry these insights forward in both her personal and professional life. As the day moved toward evening, she reflected once more on her boss's role. The quick response, the arrangement of the doctor's visit, and the continued concern had left a lasting impression. She recognized that leadership and compassion were intertwined, and that understanding human needs could be as impactful as any professional decision. The experience had reshaped her understanding of support, trust, and the power of proactive care. Holding the baby close, she felt a deep sense of closure. The panic and stress had given way to calm, relief, and profound gratitude. The experience had been a journey from fear to reassurance, from vulnerability to connection. She understood now that moments of crisis could reveal the best aspects of human nature and the extraordinary ways people could respond with empathy and action. She felt strengthened, inspired, and grateful. As the baby finally settled into a peaceful sleep, she allowed herself to relax fully. The events of the morning, though intense and challenging, had become a testament to the power of human kindness. She reflected on the lessons she would carry forward: presence, patience, empathy, and trust. These principles, reinforced through experience, had transformed a simple mistake into a life-affirming memory. She felt ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, carrying the warmth of the morning's unexpected kindness in her heart.